Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you for this TV review, and on this video I will be talking about The Undoing episode 4. It's called See No Evil, so halfway through now this HBO limited series, and I definitely think this is an improvement on episode 3, which I was pretty down on. I think that was easily the weakest episode so far of this series. So episode 4 is a big step up, and I have to say, step forward Donald Sutherland, because this is kind of the sort of entertaining, scary Donald Sutherland we wanted to see. I say that because I think if any actor was kind of put on this earth to play really kind of sinister, nasty, kind of, just intimidating, kind of, upper class sort of, characters, I think it probably is Donald Sutherland. He's kind of has that role down to the T, where there's just this sort of menace behind his sort of eyes. He has this almost kind of, gentle, pristine type appearance to him, but then he comes out and he's just like really vicious. And I think that's why you cast him in this sort of role. But up to now in this series, they've been like cutting around it. You've had little bits with him kind of, talking to Grace and kind of being there for her, and just little bits and pieces, but you've never really got full on Franklin, his character in this. And I think this is what happens in this episode, because he kind of takes a more central role. And the one thing about this series is it has delivered on like entertaining, kind of standout, ripe dialogue that just jumps off the screen sort of thing, regardless of what you think about the drama overall and stuff like that. It's definitely nailed those really kind of, just hammy, entertaining, searing sort of lines. I think the satire of it, at least in those moments, have worked really well. So there's a line in this episode, because as I said, Franklin, Grace's father, does take a more central role, and at one point, because I should describe the scene, because what happens is the school, that this sort of like rich sort of school, because of all the media attention over this trial and all the stuff flying about, at one point the headmaster suggests that Henry is taken out of school, that being Grace and Jonathan's son, just till things kind of die over. And again, this is one of those very rich schools, and this character, Franklin, the Sutherland character, has been giving them like all this money, and is very sort of rich guy. And it's that whole privilege sort of thing where obviously they have investors and stuff, and the parents pay a lot of money. So he sort of goes into this scene being Franklin, all sort of guns blazes. He's like just really furious that they've suggested taking him out of school. So he makes this kind of direct threat, which is just like so hilarious, where he calls himself, he says, I'm a cocksucker, but not just like any cocksucker, an old-fashioned cocksucker. And I'm not saying this verbatim, but and then he ends with, he kind of says that you have not yet met anyone like me, and he sort of describes himself as like an ice cold, like cocksucker or something, and you have not met one like me. That's when they come out of the cage or something like that. He's using that whole metaphor, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's the sort of scene and dialogue you hire Donald Sutherland to deliver. As I said, he is kind of terrifying in it, but in a brilliant, entertaining way. But yeah, he basically makes a direct threat to like the principal. He's just furious. How dare you, take my son out or my grandson out of school, basically. But as I said, Franklin does have a bigger part in this episode, because what we see in this episode is the defense of Jonathan with this specialist lawyer, Haley, who Franklin also hired or suggested Grace use. We see the defense start to take shape, and this is a very sort of modern sort of way of thinking, the way this character Haley, who I like a lot as well. I've enjoyed her so far in the series, but she kind of wants to build up this reputation in the media and kind of build up this idea that Grace supports her husband no matter what has been put out there in the reservation. So we really start to get into the strategy behind the defense for Jonathan, because obviously at this point there's a lot of heat on him, and a lot of the evidence kind of does point to him and stuff, even though there are sort of other possibilities out there. So even though originally like the bail was set for him and it was kind of a high bail which they would struggle to pay and it would be very difficult to get him out, the lawyer Haley pushes for this. She makes the point that, well, it would be good for our defence to get him out on bail so that you can kind of be seen in public and we can control the narrative easier that way round, is her way of thinking. So begrudgingly, Franklin puts up the money to get Jonathan out. And this is just something that really pisses him off, you can tell, because he's always like jumping in and giving his 2 cents to Grace. He just can't help it, because he kind of says at one point, well, I'm happy to do it for you and stuff if that's what Haley says. But then he kind of makes this like aggressive comment about, yeah, if he does any more damage, if he hurts you and Henry anymore, I'll kill him, basically. So he's really not sitting on any fences in this episode, and it's kind of glorious. So he definitely takes a bigger part in this episode. So I did kind of enjoy that. And I think there's a scene with him and Jonathan at one point where he makes his feelings clear. I think it might be that scene, actually. Yeah, I think he does say that to Jonathan directly. There's also this bizarre scene towards the end of the episode, which is kind of surreal, where Jonathan literally shows up at Fernando's place. Fernando being the husband of Eleanor, and that's kind of weird, where Jonathan you're not sure at the time if it's a strategy or if it's like meant to be sincere, but he goes over to his place and becomes very emotive towards him, because obviously the baby's there as well, and obviously the original son. And we now know that, of course, the baby is Jonathan, because that's been proven now, because, of course, Jonathan got Eleanor's pregnant. So it's this really awkward sort of like atmosphere. But Jonathan's there and he's kind of like protesting his innocence, and he does cross the line, because not only does he say it to Fernando, but he kind of says it to like the son. He says, I just want you to know I did not kill your mother. I wasn't involved in it. So if you were being cynical, you might look at it and kind of say, yeah, this seems like a clear tactic to sort of get them on your side. But again, this is why maybe it's a clever bit of casting with Hugh Grant, because you can never tell if he's just trying to like be a little too charming and manipulative, which is almost like a nice little joke in the next scene. But the scene plays out and it goes in quite a surreal direction, because at one point Fernando kind of does become a little bit more gentle. He sort of smooth that out a little bit as the scene goes on, because obviously at first he's very aggressive and hostile towards him, but he kind of allows Jonathan to hold the baby, because of course it's his baby and stuff. So that's an interesting and strange moment which I didn't expect, but I guess you could see it as a clear tactic that Jonathan is trying to get them on side. But anyway, it cuts to the next scene with him and Hayley, and that's the sort of line I'm talking about, where Hayley's all over it. She can't believe how naive and stupid he's been, and you can't say you disagree with her, really. But it does come back to this thing about kind of the casting of Hugh Grant, because she actually has a line where it says, how much fucking charm do you think you have, basically. And she goes into this whole thing, well, you think you cast a spell on people with that face. And again, I think this is all very almost meta in a way, the fact that Hugh Grant is known as having this like bumbling sort of charm, but yeah, later in his career he got known for playing kind of a bit more nasty type characters, so there's almost like this roguish sort of twist to it. But I do like the stuff with Hayley in this episode, and the way she starts formulating this strategy and tries to work up a good sort of public profile. It's sort of very sort of sinister, but well, sinister's not the right word. I guess very sort of manipulative and kind of just very sort of phony in many ways, but you can understand the strategy as well. But it's in this scene where she comes up with the bright idea to like have Jonathan go on TV and do an interview. Again, the idea is to control the narrative so that he can give his side of the story, and kind of it's a good way to like get his face out there and put a different perspective, put a different spin, because a lot of the media and narrative is working against him at this point, and obviously there's pretty strong evidence against him, even though it's not like 100% conclusive. But yeah, I do like the way like a light bulb goes off in Hayley's mind in that scene, because she's talking about like how fucking charming do you think you are and stuff, and you cast a spell on people with that charming face, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I can use that sort of thing. So like the episode actually ends with this quite powerful sort of like scene where he's having this interview, and again it's playing with like the idea of how sincere is he, how much is a performance, which is something that this the series kind of very interested in, and he tries to make himself as engaging and emotional as he can be. He kind of says, that he did have love for Eleanor. He like reassures that he didn't kill, and then there's this cliffhanger sort of line at the end where he basically says, because they question, well, if not you, then do you have any idea who might have killed Elena? And he like pauses and looks into the camera, a very deliberate shot, but he's like, as a matter of fact, I think I might do now, and that's kind of how it ends, and it sort of cuts to Grace anyway and gets her reaction. So it's a pretty impressive cliffhanger. So a good way to set things up and give you that sort of hook for the next episode. Let's see, and there's one or two other. I think that's the kind of like main sort of meaty stuff. I think one thing I was a bit disappointed with in this one is then in the last episode before this, there was this sort of cliffhanger of the police revealing Grace that she was caught on video the night of the murder as well, because of course they had the shots of Jonathan, and then it was revealed that they caught Grace as well, and that was quite an intriguing little hook for the end of that episode. But that's kind of just like wrapped up quite quickly, and it's sort of dismissed that she could have done the murders, because what basically happens is like the detective just says, well, we've got these other shots of you like a few minutes later or something, or basically shots that would have been taken at the time of the murder or maybe just a bit after. So because of those, they kind of dismiss her as like a key suspect. So I thought that was a bit wasted. That felt a bit weak to tie it up in that sort of way without really pushing the idea that, well, could she have committed the murder, basically. It just felt a bit of a weak way to kind of reveal that or to tie that up, rather than maybe at least creating more suspense that it could be her, or maybe they just needed to come up with a more original way. But it felt a bit of a weak payoff after what was a good cliffhanger. But yeah, there's bits and pieces just adding like stuff to the case. For example, Eleanor did like an oil painting of Grace, like a portrait, this really personal thing, which kind of paints a picture of her being obsessed with her, because of course there was this whole attraction between them in the first episode, maybe more from Eleanor's point of view, but certainly there seemed to be something from Grace's side as well. So that certainly is something in the favour of Jonathan and his case. But that's episode 4 of The Undoing. As I said, much better I thought than episode 3 in my opinion. I think the first 2 were maybe still the best, but I did get a fair bit of enjoyment out of this episode, and I think as we get closer to the trial and stuff, you can see things cooking, and I definitely enjoyed Donald Sutherland in this episode. The Hayley character as well, I'm enjoying a fair bit. So if you've been watching along, then let me know your thoughts on the series, on this episode as well, particularly if you've seen it. And I'll be back very soon with episode 5. So yeah, not too long to wait till I review number 5. But I'll be back soon with more Undoing, more new TV reviews. I'm also doing Star Trek Discovery, amongst other things, so you can like and subscribe if you want to help me keep the content coming to support the channel. Get me up on Twitter. I'll put the address in the description. And yeah, like, subscribe. You can also ding the bell on YouTube for more notifications. But thanks for listening, and see you guys later. Goodbye.